Hello and welcome to another Pro Tip conversation. Today, Anish and I are here with Laura Dotson, who's the owner of LivelyX Studio in Palo Alto. LivelyX is a personal training, fitness, and nutrition studio. She brings a holistic view to training and fitness. Laura received her master's degree in public health from the University of Tennessee with a focus on nutrition. She's also a national board certified health and wellness coach with specialization in weight loss, emotional eating, stress management, and tobacco cessation. I might be missing a few things as well. I'll let you fill them in.
Yeah.
But today we're going to dive into her journey with training and coaching and nutrition. And welcome to Pro Tip, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess we'll just start with, what inspired you to get into the whole fitness nutrition space?
Oh, that's such a loaded question, but it's give me the 30,000 foot level of that.
Yeah.
Nutrition was really, honestly, a life event. I was super sick in college. My freshman year in college, I got kind of wiped out with like an anomaly of I was sick after Thanksgiving. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I wound up having multiple surgeries on my kidneys. And I left the hospital like 20 pounds lighter, and I was already pretty petite as it is. I'm kind of like my weight now. So
Yeah.
I lost like every single muscle tone, like everything. And, I had to find different creative ways to put the weight back on in a way that was healthy, but like also just like, so I had strength. And, I'd always wanted to go to med school. And I decided at that point, we had a really good program at my undergrad at UNC. It was like one of the top public health programs in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I really am interested in nutrition. And so that health journey of like being so sickly and like not having any strength, like I could barely get out of bed because I was just so like fatigued, kind of like jumpstart my like need for nutrition, and just like not only for like my livelihood, but like I was so fascinated by it. And I was a very big nerd. And so always sat in the front row and asked a billion questions. So it was really that moment where, because I was like, I want to go to med school. I want to be a pediatrician. That changed my whole gamut, that one moment. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That makes really sense though. Have you experienced something like that and then want to understand how does this work and how can I help make this better?
How do I get back on track? I was 18 and it was like just an uphill battle. Because you're an adult, but then you're kind of not, because you still have your parents there with you. But
right.
You're off the train of being an adult in college and are away from your parents. So it was just like this big event where I made this decision. Like it felt like the first real adult decision that I made of like, this is where my career is going to go.
Yeah.
No idea what that was going to look like. And it's taken me so many different amazing places. So yeah.
And then, so you also quite athletic. Were you like an athlete, active person growing up?
Yeah, I was. I wasn't a good athlete. I got to be a better athlete as I've got older as an adult.
Right.
I have more like drive to be better, but as a kid, I was super shy. So I played basketball in high school and in middle school. Surprisingly, I did not make my high school or middle school dance team or cheerleading team, even though I was an NFL cheerleader. Like surprisingly, I never made the cheerleading team, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so I was definitely an athlete, but I was like this tall, lanky, bony athlete, but yeah, I loved playing sports. It was really fun. It was a great way to connect with my mom and my stepdad. So, growing up.
Did you have any particular favorite sports? Was you guys basketball maybe?
Basketball is probably my favorite. Like I used to go to Hornets games a lot, so they've changed their name a few times, but I Muggsy Bowe when I was little. He was like my favorite player. He was like, the shorty on the court, but moved around. So yeah.
He spent some time in Toronto as well. So yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite as a kid because I was like, he just was so quick on the court. But yeah, I get many Hornets games growing up.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so we mentioned in the intro that you're the founder of LivelyX, and I was wondering if you could just tell us a bit about it and kind of what inspired you to start it and kind of what your goals are with it.
Yeah. So, I've been in so many different types of studios. I started, I didn't really get into my fitness journey until 2015. So even though I danced after grad school, in the NFL, but I didn't have that when I moved here to San Francisco. So I moved, from DC to here, and I was looking for kind of a community, and I happened to walk into a neighborhood community, in San Francisco when I lived there. And I went to a retreat, and from there I started teaching at that studio, dance, out of all things. never made it, in dance as a kid, but then, was dancing and after college and now teaching dance. So I just loved the movement, but I loved that studio feel. And ever since then, with the exception of Rumble, I've always taught at small boutique, like neighborhood gyms, right? Or neighborhood studios. And so I created LivelyX to kind of be part of that as well. So I want it to be, it's in Palo Alto, downtown Palo Alto, really close to Whole Foods, so it's great with nutrition. But it's downtown Palo Alto, and I really want it to be a neighborhood studio and kind of have that same feel where people come in, they know each other, they have training partners, like they can go, after the gym, they can go get coffee, wine, drinks, dinner, whatever the thing, and do life together. So I created it for from my experiences in my own fitness journey as a trainer, but I really also tried to create it as a space for, it's really intimidating to be a woman and go into a gym and learn how to lift and live successfully. And we see a lot on social media of amazing women and what they've done with their bodies, but it's hard to understand how to do that. And also let alone go into a gym and figure that out. Right. And so I want to be a space where women really could come in and lift and get stronger together and for their next kind of chapter in their lives, whether that be a mom, a student, a new career, or even if just to be this next stronger person to themselves is kind of why I created it.
Right. And so you said there's lifting and dancing, or what kind of classes?
So it's strength, dance, and boxing. So I cannot let boxing part of that. So
yeah. We noticed. You're gonna say something, Manish?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, I saw in your bio that you grew up doing ballroom dancing, right? So is that the dancing part of it? Has that always been an influence in your fitness journey? I mean, then you went on to do cheerleading in the NFL. So it seems like dance and fitness has kind of been a big focus.
Yeah, dancing has really been how I met friends. And it's kind of how always and it's really funny. That's when I started ballroom dancing when I was in college, it was as a club, right? And then I got to compete in college through dancing, but I did it because I wanted friends. You're a freshman in college. I only had three. My high school was tiny. It was 80 people. So only 3 people went to UNC for undergrad. So small. And luckily one was one of my best friends. I was the athlete. She was the cheerleader in high school. And then we flip-flopped. So it was kind of fun. But I only had one good friend going into college together. And we decided we're not going to be college roommates because we want to stay friends. We had the worst college ever. We're why did we do this to ourselves? But so dancing was how I made friends. And when I was in DC from undergrad, I didn't moved to a new city, didn't know anybody. And I was like, this looks really fun. I'm going to go take a prep class. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was so intimidating. And it was just I was horrific. I have no clue how I made this team. But I worked my butt off. So I had the coach came up after me and was we really like your look. We think you have a lot of potential. And I did it because I didn't have any friends, and I wanted to find a way to build friends that were my age. And so I definitely made the team, but because I was so inexperienced, some of these women were women that had been dancing their entire lives, danced in college, made their college teams, or had just so many professional years of experience. And I had none, right? Just for the pure love of movement. So I would go in 2 hours early. I got the superlative of always sweaty before practice, because I would literally go in and practice 2 hours earlier before we even started. And our practice could be anywhere between 3 to 5 hours long. So I was there at least half a day after a full day of work, because we had to be, full time.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah. And the same thing with boxing. That's kind of brought me into the fitness industry in San Francisco. Again, didn't really have a bunch of people that I knew. Another city. Here I go again. Yeah. And I just kind of picked up boxing that way too. And then auditioned for Rumble, and they sent me to New York, and that kind of the rest is history with how I kind of learned that. But that's kind of how my fitness journey and dancing journey evolved, was just for the pure love of community and wanting to find my people.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, it sounds like the community has been a big thread for you through kind of this you're creating a space for community, and you got into dance for community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just think that we're just, it's hard. Life is hard already as it is. And we don't need to do it alone. And, there's so many things where we need each other and we need people. And I think that, we're meant to be, there's so many of us on this earth, we're meant to be together in community. And so I think movement in general is one way to kind of bring people together besides eating.
especially in such a world now, right, where we're all so remote and we're on computers and we don't move. So that
Right.
Yeah.
like having a space to be like in person and physical and sweat is like such a nice thing to have.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, and I definitely make people sweat. Not an easy workout, but it's good.
Can you tell, I guess, us a little bit about? I saw on your site that as you said, boxing is a big focus of your fitness journey as well, or fitness studio as well. And can you tell us a little bit about how that class or those programs work? Is it with a focus on fitness, or is there also an element of competition involved? How does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think boxing is very humbling because it is, you can constantly keep learning, right? And
Yeah,
you can also do it wrong.
yeah,
And you can do it right, right? And you don't have to be a fighter, a professional fighter to love the sport or even to
yeah.
enjoy hitting a bag because there's so much enjoyment of like stress retention, just hitting that bag or hitting mitts. So,
Yeah.
the class that I have right now is it's kind of like helping you train like a fighter. Um, like fighters do tons of core work, they're jumpers,
Mm-hmm.
getting warmed up, they're shadow boxing before they even wrap they put their mitts on, right? Or their gloves on. And so they're doing all this prep work before they even start to even punch. And so the way that structure of that class works is that there's a bit of an element of like a mobility warm up. We're going to be shadow boxing. We're going to train like we're fighting. There's going to be some jump roping. There's technique where you learn like how to punch, like how to turn your wrists, how to turn your hips, how to like, blade the bag and not be square to a bag. And then they hit the bag and they learn a little bit of mitt work. And it's what I'm trying to build in now is having it where other people can hold mitts too, like
Yeah.
in the community. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of a rotation, but it is round. It is based on different rounds, but there's an element of like, hey, you're coming here to train like a fighter, not because you're kind of go out in the world and create violence, but like we've got a lot to fight for, right? We've got a lot
Mm-hmm.
to fight for in respect of our fitness, but in like everyday tension. And this is a great place to kind of like train like you're trying to win a fight.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I guess it makes it a lot more approachable as well. Because I mean, a lot of times if you're taking a boxing class where you have to spar or something along those lines, where maybe there's people that don't want to be involved in actually hitting someone or whatever. But here it's like you're still learning all the movements and you're training your body, but without possibly the risk of injury and all that as well,
Yeah,
right?
and
So yeah.
so many elements and places that where you can go to spar. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of it's boxing and it's from teaching at Rumble, like their whole thing is boxing inspired fitness, and I love that focus,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to make it even smaller, right? And I love Rumble because it's like a DJ. You're on. There's a stage, the music's
Yeah.
loud, the lights are low, and that in itself is a little less intimidating. But 60 people can be in that class, and it's
Right.
massive, and you're not
Right.
getting that specialized attention, and so I've had a lot of clients come to me, even from LivelyX, like because they want to learn more about boxing and they want to do it one-on-one to get those skill sets so they feel comfortable going into a big gym and having a great time and not worrying about like all the noise around them and just having fun, being like they know what a 1-2 is. They know how to duck and slip and roll, and they can kind of it's more playful and it's like recess than like a workout. And that's kind of
Yes.
what this class is. It's hard, but it's meant to be like playful and like recess versus like it being truly a workout. I mean, you're gonna work out, but yeah, I hope you have a little fun along.
Yeah, well, you have fun. You learn some skills. You learn some body
Yeah,
movement. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I do think with boxing, it's fun. Like back to the community thing is like you're saying with having a pad holder, it can be a very interactive experience, right? Like your pad holder is setting the tone, they're setting the pace, they're showing you different things. Like
yeah.
it's a fun back and forth.
And that's how I learned how to hold mitts. Like honestly, it's so scary. I mean, I taught boxing and I was intimidated to hold mitts for people, right?
Yeah.
And like because I taught it on a stage, I knew how to hit the bag, but like interacting with individuals and giving them different skill sets was so different. And like, I started teaching boxing in 2019 and it's now 2023. So I've got like 4 years of experience. I'm still pretty new in the sport. And that's what I think is really humbling is learning. I get to learn from so many different people. I have so many mentors in the space that are wonderful mentors that I can go to like in LA and like even locally here in San Mateo, like there's some great local boxing gyms. And
Yeah.
these are the spaces where like they made it less intimidating for me to hold mitts. And I had like fighters hitting mitts for me, like Olympic fighters, professional fighters hitting my mitt. And that was cool because it's like to like see like they were willing to share like their love of the sport so that I could continue to like inspire others to love the sport too.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I guess switching gears a little bit, I guess not switching gears because we're continuing on your coaching
Yeah.
journey a bit more. But you've, looking at your profile, you've been a trainer and a coach for a variety of different sports and activities, right? Can you tell us a bit about the different types of coaching and training that you've done? Obviously, you've mentioned, nutrition, fitness, but I don't think that's all. As Chris mentioned in your bio initially, there's a ton more. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about those?
Coaching. Yeah. So I started, I didn't start out coaching. I started out kind of in the world of, when you're young, I don't want to say naive, but you're very hopeful and optimistic of like what you can do as an individual for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's wonderful. I just found a different way to make an impact that I could see the impact. And I think that through one-on-one coaching, you can see the impact of someone's their life and others. But I started in politics, right? I started in nutrition policy, working on the Hill, thinking that politics is where the game is going to be, where I'm really going to see change. And it's challenging, and there's a lot of red tape in politics. And so I went to research, and that's really where I got into coaching and really started understanding like how behavior science and how different coaching modalities really played a role in creating programs, whether that be a wellness program. So I worked with various foundations, so like the Kellogg Foundation, where we were going into individualized underserved communities and working on different wellness programs, or with Google. Like I worked with the Google food team, and we were building out a space to teach Googlers how to like cook and, be mindful about their movement, and just kind of bringing in basic mindfulness techniques. And all that was different coaching modalities. So I've been able to do a lot with my career. And that kind of led me to pivot, where I added on another, coaching element and tool of tobacco cessation. And both tobacco and nutrition and obesity are two of the most preventable things we can do to, prevent death, but longevity in our own health. And so I think that's kind of like why I love coaching is it really is about helping people, one, live longer, but live better.
Awesome. What are, I guess, some of you mentioned some similarities, but what are some of the differences between coaching someone for tobacco cessation versus someone for nutrition and fitness? Obviously there might be lots of things in common as well, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of commonality, like whether you're thinking about routines or what triggers people to eat or smoke. Those are some very similar overlap. Tobacco and weight loss have a ton of similarity.
Right. Yeah.
But both of them also have their own like pitfalls. Like with tobacco, it is really an addiction, and with nutrition, there could be an eating disorder related to that too. So there's both of them have like one has more of a chemical response to the brain, and the other has more of an emotional response to the brain. It's still releasing chemicals that our brain, when we go through emotions, that's a chemical release or trigger in our brain. And there's data on like seeing how that works. But the modality of coaching them can be very different. With tobacco, in particular, we're really trying to minimize harm and kind of trying to replace the habit of smoking or vaping or using other tobacco, paraphernalia. And it is about lifestyle change, but I would say more so with nutrition and fitness, it is about incorporating other modalities into your lifestyle too, but also just learning how to do that, right? It's one thing to quit something and replace it, but it's a whole nother game of like, okay, well, how do I need to eat for me? Not for like the way, like, the USDA says we should eat or whatever. Like there's tons of influencers out there that are wonderful, but they're like, they'll say, here's what I eat in a day. And I was actually talking to somebody about this today, and I was like, that's great. But like what Laura needs to eat and what Anish and Chris need to eat are completely different, right? It doesn't matter what I need to eat in a day. It matters what you need. And so learning that, I think, is another interesting skill set that takes a whole nother, realm of different ways to coach someone. And same thing with training, right? You could do 100 sit-ups and I could do 100 sit-ups and we could look very different, right?
Right.
How you target your body and how your body responds to exercise and how it responds to food is very different.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess in terms of your, coaching career, who have been some of the biggest influences there for you?
I've had a lot of people from a boxing perspective, I have a coach. His name is Basil. He's an amazing person. He's like a cut man. I don't know if you know what that is, where he's in the ring, helping people. Yeah. And he's awesome. He was in some top fights, but especially some female fights too, like Sereno. Like he was in that as the cut man, and it's cool to see like that's my coach. And I think with him, he's really made this sport really approachable. And so I think from my fitness perspective of the sport and being able to talk the talk, um, and just know that I have the ability to do this as a female that's kind of still new to the sport, he's been an amazing inspiration. I'd also kind of say, it's going to sound super silly and cheesy, but my partner is also a coach, and he has, you know, we've been together for 3 years, and even his approach to fitness and his approach to how he trains his clients from a lifestyle is has also shaped me and how I present myself. And you know, at the end of the day, like, he reminds me, like, people come to you because you're you. And I think that's also really important to remember for any coach, right? People come to you because they want you in their lives. They think you add value. And that's sometimes hard to remember. And I think that's something he's like really instilled in me, is like, you know, like, you are like the brand. And I think for most coaches, like, they need to remember that they are the brand, and that they have the skill sets, and people come to them because they need them in their lives.
Yeah. So not just trying to, I guess, take from some other coach, but bring your own unique self to your craft. Right? And yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I guess, is it, I was going to ask you about what's the best advice you've received from another coach, but that sounds like a pretty good one right
Yeah.
there.
Hard to follow sometimes and listen to, but it's so true. Like, so it's so true to remember, like, you know, be the light for that person. They come to you for you, and just keeping that reminder. Because even coaches, like, we need coaches, right? I have coaches, like, but we also have our ups and downs, and, like, you know, sometimes our self doubt. Like, I know people think that we don't,
Yeah.
or like they see what they see in social media, but in reality, like, we're human too, right? We're not
Right.
superhuman. We do the best we can to perform and to provide, you know, a service, but it can be challenging on the body and the mind. And to kind of continue to remember, like, you bring this gift to people is important.
Yeah, we ask this question typically of, you know, you mentioned like you guys have your own insecurities as coaches and challenges as coaches. Is there a particular experience that you remember where you felt, you know, you may not have performed to the, you know, best of your abilities, but what did you? We kind of want to know what you learned from that and how you move forward, and what you know, what insights you got from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think even I sometimes I'm shocked when I do things and I'm like, oh, I did that and I made that. Like I think about the red, you know, when I was dancing for the Washington football team, the former Redskins,
Yeah.
um, you know, making that team and looking back on it, and then with Rumble, like making Rumble and looking back on it, you know, I mean, like, especially in the NFL, like, these were, you know, it's a 50-year generation of people that have tried out for this team. And with Rumble at the time, there was only one studio in the Bay Area, and nationwide there was like seven, right? And this is before they franchised, before they got multiple people. And, you know, looking in both of those cases is like, what really helped me stand out, or what made me do this? And it was, there's some internal belief that, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I can do this, right? That I'm strong enough to do this. And there's some internal belief that this is going to be really hard, but it's going to make me better, right? And so I've always tended to do things that are outside my comfort zone, even though, and that scare me, right? And I think
Right.
that's important, to kind of continue to do things that are outside your zone that will scare you, but ultimately it's going to make you grow. Now, in both cases, like, and particularly with dancing, like, I was still very shy, right? Because I didn't fully believe that I belonged there, right? And so,
Yeah.
because I was still, and I did it for 3 years, and I think looking back, and what I would tell my younger self, or anybody that's in a situation that's got something really cool that they're doing, like, really live it up, right? Live in the moment, have an amazing fun time, because it does go by so quickly. Not to say that, like, I mean, I'm giving a eulogy here, but it does. It goes by so fast. And,
Yeah.
you know, we went to the 49ers and the now Commanders. We went to that this past
Right.
weekend, and I was like, I miss being on the field. We were like 5 rows back, and I was like, I used to be on that field, right?
That's awesome.
You know, and I've probably been to more football games than, well, my partner used to play in college, so maybe not, but we've been probably equally as amount of football games, you know, at the same kind of like arena. But I would just say, yeah, live in that moment, like, really be present if you can, because it does go by really fast. And even now I'm kind of trying to do the same thing, like this year with my studio, of like opening a brand new studio. It's only been open for 3 months, and kind of just like, this is what I did this year in 2022. And that's really cool. And I'm always thinking about, how do I make this better? And like, what can I do, you know, more? I'm like, you did this. That's cool. Like, you know, that's okay. So
That's awesome.
long-winded answer.
No, that's great. I think, you know, the parts about, you know, trying things that are outside your comfort zone and then living in the moment. It's very important advice for anyone trying,
Yeah.
you know, different activities, right? Whether it's sports or any profession for that matter. So
I,
that's great.
I think what you were speaking to a little bit earlier too about like imposter syndrome is so real. Like we
Yeah.
talk to so many coaches and athletes who are like, like, I really do this? And then they're like, yeah, they go out and they crush it, right? But like,
Yeah.
you always have that moment, and it's like I think that, like you're saying, is you just maybe it kind of ties to like doing things that are challenging and hard. Is you just gotta like you move through it, and it's like
And you just try,
yeah,
it just takes a try. Like I mean, yeah, I could not have made the team, right? Sure, that's fine. I mean, I kind of thought I might not anyway. So I was like, you might as well try.
Right.
yeah,
Like, oh,
What's the worst that can happen? Yeah.
take it.
yeah.
Same thing with Rumble. It's like, okay, I could try. And then, but when I tried for both teams, I mean, and I consider Rumble as a team too. Like when I tried for both, like I didn't just go in halfway, right? I made sure I got with both times. I was like, okay, if I'm really going to do this, let me get a little bit of help. Right. So
Mhm.
with dancing, I got like, there was a 2-week prep thing that I did 2 weeks, which was I look back now and I'm like, that's not enough. But, 2 weeks. And with boxing, like I would go, I started when I made that decision, I was going to audition. I was like, I'm going to every class I can. I'm going to talk to every trainer afterwards, like really understand this. I'm going to try to get as much advice as I can. I'm going to watch the videos. I'm going to see what they're doing. And, it's not kind of fake it till you make it, but it is a little bit, right? And one of the best advices that someone gave me for dancing is they're like, get behind a veteran and watch them, mimic them, see their movements. And the same thing with boxing and the same thing with training is like, find a veteran or someone that's in the space that you honor, like, and someone that you respect, and like see how they're holding themselves and how they're maybe even how they're speaking. Doesn't mean you have to speak that way, but it will help transform the way you want to dialect with other people or the message that you want to provide, right? And with the veterans, it was like I try to dance as big as them, right? And same thing with boxing is trying to be that spirit for people in that bigger space, because it's a huge studio and you're this one small person, right? And you have to fill that space. And so if you can find a veteran or a mentor, I mean, that's another advice that I kind of give people too.
Yeah, it's such great advice because I mean, any sport, I think if you follow somebody who's got a lot more experience, I think it almost helps you avoid certain mistakes that you might at the beginning because you're just kind of imitating them, and then eventually you realize why they were doing what they were doing. You might not have known that initially, but later on you kind of come to that realization. It's like, oh, this is why this works, right? And maybe watching somebody else who's not doing that, I guess that could help. But yeah. I guess last couple of questions in this section. What do you think makes a great coach?
I think it could be a variety of things. Like one, I think is being light, like being the light for somebody, right? I think there's so much negativity that's out there. People don't want to hear. I mean, I think it's one thing to share your story with folks when you are meeting somebody and you're resonating and you're relating to them. But I think people come to you because they need to be heard, they need to be seen, they need to be listened to. So they don't come to like hear your problems. They come to kind of like be a better version of themselves. And so like leaving your problems, and that's the thing about coaches in general, is like you got to leave all that in therapists. You got to leave it at the door, right? You had a terrible day, you got to still do your job because a lot of people are counting on you, right? And as a coach, as a trainer, especially as a trainer, and you're going in to teach a class, and if you had a rough day and having to put that charm on and perform, so I think really what makes someone a great coach is someone that can perform and that can be positive and an uplifting light for somebody, no matter the circumstances. But also, like I even say, like sometimes, I mean, I remember saying this on stage at Rumble several times of like, man, it's been a crap week. Be real with people, right? Like let's take that crap week or this day or this rough day and let's make something of an hour, because who rarely gets the time to like be in an amazing space and like dedicate an hour to themselves, right? And like put in the work. So I want to make sure that that's a safe space for them to like, because it may be the only time that they have to really enjoy themselves. And so I think a great coach allows room for that and recognizes that this may be the one thing that lifts them up, right?
That's awesome. And on the flip side of that, what makes a good student?
Yeah. I think what makes a good student is someone that is a little brave, right? And is courageous, and that's willing to grow, right? And wanting to grow, right? but I think it takes a lot of courage. And what I mean by that is like life in general takes courage, right? We can go so many different directions, but if we're living life with like handcuffs, right? I mean, there's only so many things that we're going to see and grow as individuals, but there's only so many. You limit the results that you're going to see and the potential you have in your life too. So I think a great student is someone that's super courageous, that's willing to take a little bit of risk, but know there's a team of people that are supporting them, and I think that's why the coach is there, the community is there too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, we've got some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
No wrong answers. And they don't have to be that rapid. You can take your time.
Okay.
So do you have a pro tip for someone who's just looking to raise their general fitness level?
General fitness, no, not nutrition part.
Yeah, we'll ask that one next.
Okay. General fitness. I think, yes. So I think as far as general fitness, like a lot of times we have excuses for like, I just don't have time to go to the gym, right?
Yeah.
I'm a huge busy person who's running a studio, still doing a full-time job, and I still coach. I still teach at Rumble to help support them. I have 3 jobs, and fitness is hard to find time for myself too. But you got to schedule it, right? I think for me personally, like if I don't schedule it and protect that time and that boundary for me, it doesn't happen. So I think the biggest pro tip for someone, because I work with a lot of women that are constantly busy with their schedule it, make it a priority, right? Don't give yourself excuses. Like if you want it to happen, like you have to put it in your calendar. It's got to be something that you continuously routinely do, and don't like push it off, because it's so easy to do, but like really make the time and set the boundaries to get it in.
Yeah, that's great advice. And okay, so then you were alluding to how about the same idea for improving their general like kind of nutrition?
Yeah, I think this one's like where I'm just it's to start simple, right? You can't just like with working out, like you're not going to run a marathon. Like I love that overnight, we know this, but the same thing with food, like you're not going to miraculously figure it out overnight, and like what all impacts us differently. We all may respond differently to different carbs or protein or whatnot, but like giving yourself the grace, take the time, like again, same thing with fitness, like don't make excuses, like, but it's okay if you slip up. It's okay if you are still you're still stumbling along the way, but like start simple, like little baby steps along the way. And one way to do that is just like, most people don't drink enough water. I'm like sitting here, I've got tea in here, but like I have this huge water jug, and like people can go a long way with just drinking water. Like constipation will be gone if people could just drink water and have a little fiber. But so that's like water is probably the biggest thing I coach everybody, because every single one of my clients in the beginning, they're like, that's like usually their response, right? Maybe a bottle, maybe 2 bottles. I drink a lot of coffee, like I hear that a lot. So.
Okay, great. That's great. And then, so do you have a favorite workout song?
Oh yeah. So DMX, Party Up, you know what I'm talking about? That one, it gets me pumped up.
Nice.
So I'm like, if I'm playing that, like people better watch out. Like the workout's going to be happening.
And then you have a favorite, do you have a favorite gym equipment? Like a favorite something in your studio maybe?
Equipment wise, like I'm a big fan of, I've recently been more of a big fan of the TRX equipment, just because I can bring it anywhere. But my favorite probably is the sled. Where you put a bunch of weight on it, push that bad boy. It's probably my new favorite toy right now.
And then do you have like a favorite workout apparel brand?
Alo has been my new go-to. So they just got a new one at Stanford Mall, which I'm pumped about. I'm teaching there on the 14th, which I'm pumped about as well. So.
And then what's your kind of go-to healthy snack?
I like roasted chickpeas, but sometimes I can go overboard and eat the whole bag.
And then your favorite exercise?
Surprisingly, and more recently, it's been pull-ups. So pull-ups have been something I'm teaching all my clients to do. And pull-ups by far my favorite exercise, because it's besides boxing, it's been the next thing that's like helped me transform like my strength. Yeah.
And least favorite exercise?
Walking lunges. I can't stand walking lunges. I'll do them, and I know they're good for me, and I keep telling myself they're good for me, but I still don't like them. But I still do them, and I make clients do them a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, Laura. I think we got some great insights. I think excited to see where you take LivelyX Studio next.
Thank
For
you.
anyone interested in connecting with Laura, you can check out livelyxstudio.com. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow. Sorry, I got to do the usual plug. Your support enables us to continue bringing advice and insights from great coaches and pros like Laura. You can find out more about ProTip on protip.app.